housing market has become so unaffordable for most Americans over the past 4 years, and I want to show you what happened. In February of 2020,
What's up with it? It's your boy Expat D in the building. Today, if you're interested in buying a home or selling a home, this is a very important video to check out, okay? Take a listen to this.
the average house in this country was $275,000. If you put a 10% down payment and got a 3.52% interest rate, your principal and interest was $1,114 plus $500 for property tax and insurance, puts your payment out the door at $1,614. The average American only needed about $50,000 in a salary with very little debt to qualify.
Now check this out. 2020, this is, realistic, okay? Realistic. You're getting paid about $50,000, got a house payment of $275,000. I mean, it's doable. And then of course, this is the average. You still have a lot of places that is cheaper. Of course, you have places that are more expensive, like your Californias and your bigger cities, like your Seattles and places like that. But here, 50,000 can get it done.
For the average home in America. That was awesome, the American dream. Now in February of 2022, the average home went up to about $350, 10% down, but the interest rates were still 3.73%. So principal and interest was $1,455 plus about $600 for property tax and homeowner insurance, put your payment out the door at $2,055. So you needed about $65,000 in a salary with very little debt to qualify. Still very doable. Now,
all right, here 2022, it went up a lot more. You'd need $65,000 income. But here's the thing. When you look at the interest rates aren't off the hook, okay, back in 2022. I mean, this is, kind of post-COVID, but it is going up. It is more expensive.
let's fast forward to current day, February 2024. Home prices have shot up to $415,000, 10% down payment. Interest rates are 6.75%, $2,423 principal and interest, $700 for property tax and homeowners insurance. Now you're looking at $3,123. So now you need about $95,000 to qualify if you have very little debt. So if you look at the down payments over the year, it's gone up only about $14,000, $15,000, which is a lot, but also doable in 4 years. But what really pinched Americans is how many individuals went from $50,000 to almost $100,000 in salary in just 4 years. That's why so many Americans can't afford a home right now. The housing market.
So taking a look at this, I mean, you've got interest rates that are just skyrocketed. I mean, they're starting to look like car payment interest rates. Of course, depending on your credit score, but that's really the problem. The problem is, within a 4-year span, I really don't see people that double their income. Now, I don't know if perhaps they move to a different state, something like that can happen, but usually with higher income, it's higher costs of living. So that doesn't really help you. This is kind of based on your cost of living and what you make having to had doubled in that same location. Okay, because if you say, yeah, I'll give you an example. I used to live in Florida and I had moved to the West Coast, and my part of it was how I was being taxed, but my income almost doubled. But it was a different cost of living. That's something to keep in mind. But nevertheless, that's the problem. So right now we have this dilemma. I've been hearing for years now, it seems, people saying, the crash is coming, the crash is coming, the crash is coming. But I'm like, my God, like this thing, how long is this housing market going to be artificially propped up? Like, I'll give you an example. I did buy a home, and this is back in 2008, 2016. Okay, I bought one in Vegas. Boy, I wouldn't mind having that deal back, right? I got a house, it was like 180, 185, right, to buy the house. And there's another house I liked, actually even more than that one, that was 165. right? Both houses, the one for 165 was in a gated community. The one I got, it wasn't in a gated community, but it was a little bit bigger. And so the crazy thing about it is, um, now that house is selling for like 400 something thousand with interest rates that are like, yeah, over half, over double the interest rate. So even if I would have got that same price, I mean, my housing note would have been uh, at least five, six, $700 more a month. But nevertheless, when you look at a place like that, I bought my house in Vegas. Okay, look at the scenario now. When you look at Vegas, tourism is down. Um, Vegas reminds me a lot of Miami. And what I mean by that is both places are kind of, the main economy is really based on tourism. Like a lot of what you see job wise in let's say Miami, you see a lot of strip malls, people working at like 99-cent stores, fast food restaurants, convenience stores, that type of stuff, right? And then the ones that are kind of making money, they're kind of like on Las Vegas Strip, working in clubs, working in bars, that type of stuff, right? Same with Vegas. It's the casinos. It's the going to the Strip and looking at those like celebrity restaurants and people. I remember years ago, and I'm sure this has changed slightly, but they would just go to Vegas and learn how to deal cards or work in a casino, and that's good money. You can just do that, and that would be enough to like buy a house and really do good for yourself in a place like Vegas, right? So a lot of that stuff is slowed down. The prices that they're paying people for like regular jobs, they don't really support a $400,000 house. And it's been like that for for the last maybe four or so years. And I'm looking at this like, man, this formula just doesn't work. And you keep hearing it's going to go down, it's going to go down. And every time I look at it, it's about the same. Okay, it looks like it's slightly going down, but it's nowhere in touch with what people are making, what they're actually earning. Just like what you see on this chart that this guy shared. I think his name was it FM Smith? Just like what he shared is that our cost of living didn't double. So it's making it really hard to really not just sustain yourself. It reminds me of like, I'm originally from California, and you have people that, especially like the younger, millennials and younger, it's almost like they kind of gave up, on anything ambitious. They're like, a lot of them are just like living with their parents, or they are living with roommates, renting a room, something like that. And they're just like, it is what it is, right? It doesn't motivate you, because a lot of these people, even if they made twice their income, they still wouldn't have enough to like buy a house, or man, they barely can rent an apartment. Even some of the years ago, I used to teach out there, and I used to see teachers that I work with bussing tables at Applebee's on the weekend. I'm like, wow, right? That's what it takes to get by. These are college degree jobs that they have, and they need to have more than one job. So that's the problem. So if you're somebody that has a house and you want to sell it, man, you're not selling that house, because what are you going to imagine if I still have my old house, knowing that my interest rate was like 3.2, right? Am I really going to buy a house and now the houses are like over double the price, and I'm going to sign on for an interest rate that's like 7 or 8%? That's stupid. So now it's hard for you to sell a house, Well, not really hard. It's not worth it. And then for a buyer, how long are we just going to sit out? You know, just waiting. Like when are we ever going to start dealing with some figures that are more reasonable, that's more favorable? So that's the problem. You know, right now I feel like in America, I feel like they're when it comes to control, I mean, it's just like they're putting a stranglehold on everything. Like everything is more expensive now. And I don't know. Maybe they're doing this on purpose. So because it looks like another system is being orchestrated in or being ushered in, however you want to say it. Because so many things that I'm looking at, it just it doesn't really make sense how it's going to continue. When you look at jobs, you've got AI, okay? And you're like, okay, the more AI gets bigger, the more people lose their job, right? So the more people lose their job, how are they going to afford housing? Right? How are they just going to even afford to live? You look at education, right? Okay. You got AI. Okay. And when you have education, it's like everything is like to the equivalent of when you have a GPS, right? So now, like when we're driving and we have a GPS, why would you pull out a map? Because you could use GPS. So just like in education, if you could AI dang near everything, right? ChatGPT and all that stuff, why wouldn't you? So then it's making a lot of the ways that you educate someone obsolete. So if your education really, like, what is that going to be? It doesn't really lead to a job the way it's set up because you're everything is being automated, right? How can you stand up, you know, from like an AI robot society? So anyway, there's so many things that we have going on. It's really pointed. Things are drastically going to have to change. So maybe if everything they really just have the mentality to just like F it, right? Like, let's just keep housing expensive. Let's keep cars expensive. Let's keep food expensive. Everything so that everybody struggles. So then the government can lay out some type of solution. Everyone's like, oh my God, now I could do it, right? Because without it, like, who would want to submit to a new way of doing things or a new system if you're doing good? If the majority of the people are doing good in how things are going, why should you submit to another system? If I'm making a bunch of money, right, living good, got a nice house, nice car, everything is easy and all that stuff, and they come out and say something like, oh, we're going to go to universal basic income or something like that. Why would I want to do that? Right? Because I don't have the advantage anymore, right? I feel like I'm getting the same as the next person, and the next person in the old system is not doing as good as I was. So that's kind of the problem that you would have. So, but that's what it looks like to me. That's what all signs look like they're pointed to, is that we're going to usher in some type of new system. I don't understand how it's going to work, but something definitely systematically has to change, because right now, just like I said, you have people that are getting older. You know, their estimated Social Security and all that stuff, man, I don't know how they're supposed to do it. They're running out of money. Education's changing. Housing is too expensive. Cars is too expensive. Groceries are too expensive. So it's just the formula is just not working. And I don't feel like they're even trying anymore. I don't even feel like they're trying anymore. I feel like it's like, let's just make everybody suffer. And I guess something is supposed to take place of this. I don't know why or when and all that. But that seems like that's what's going on behind the scenes. That's just my take on it, right? That's what seems like is going on. Anyway, if you like this type of content, like, share, subscribe. I'm Expat D, right? Thanks for joining me for this video, and I'll see you in the next one.